solopreneur type situation to now I've got all these things happening with multiple people involved that I've got my hand in, but I'm not responsible for every part of it?
Well, in my opinion, it was desire to not have that many people answering to me directly. Employees are great, but even the greatest employee there are difficulties, and my motivation was not. My motivation has never really been about money. I know that's probably hard for some people to understand because I'm going to make money, there's no question about it. But once I had a really smart German immigrant friend of mine had built an incredible business. He built the Denver airport. He was a steel fabricator and erector. Came over as an immigrant after World War II. And he told me, he said, people tell me that their family is number one, but when they aren't providing for their family, what's number one? Going out and finding a job that can support them and making enough to support them. So it's not that the family's number two, it's that they're equal. Mm-hmm. You've got to have a balance in life. My balance came once I could pay all my bills. All it became was motivation to succeed at building successful things. And sure, I like having money, but I live pretty modestly considering. And my motivation is I just don't want to fail. And so I serve on the boards of all of these businesses that I've described. I don't run them day to day. I just make sure we've got really competent people in there running them day to day. Our CEO of our rocket business was of a division of Rolls-Royce, was the CEO of their propulsion side until it sold. So I've surrounded myself. One of the things that impressed me about it's called Via Space, VAYA. You can look it up. You can see our engines on YouTube firing. You can see our webpage, learn a lot more about it. But I've got the chairman of the board is an ex-shuttle commander. Well, there aren't too many of those. You don't get to hang around with that kind of intelligence very often.
No.
Another one was the Top Gun graduate of Top Gun school in the Navy when he graduated, and he was in charge of incredible number of planes, and he was in charge of the whole Libyan affair under, I think it was Clinton, when we went in and bombed. Another gentleman is from Venezuela. He's incredibly connected in military. He brought 2 4-star generals to our advisory board, General Abrams and General Clark, Wesley Clark. Both of those are on our advisory board. So he's a stellar individual with great credentials. And I joke, and then there's me. I have in my opinion, I don't have those credentials. And but that's okay. I add something to the party. And so I've surrounded myself with great people, both as investors and business minds, and more along the line of technical minds in this case, in Via's case. But I don't know if I actually answered your question. But
yeah, I think you did. I mean, what I heard was it was about who you surrounded yourself with, so that you were able to move past just what you could do. I mean, is that a fair statement?
It's an absolute statement. It's what I've told my grandchildren in trying to get them to be electricians or plumbers or whatever. Is you start off as one, and in 5 years you hire 5 more, and you don't increase your income, quadruple it immediately, but off of every employee you got, and you're paying them $35 an hour, you're charging $45 an hour. So you're making money and succeeding in that manner. And I don't think there's very many jobs in this world where you can keep expanding your horizon by doing all the work yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And that actually, I think, is one of the things that holds up a lot of small businesses. They they try and grow while the owner, who may have been the entrepreneur of that business, they didn't grow beyond their business. They got pigeonholed in it. And they may not have had the time or the skill set or the education or maybe even the gumption to break out of that mold. And their businesses end up suffering from that at times.
As opposed to launching rockets.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that. I mean, I wouldn't,
And I'm talking about the ones, and I'm going to be very clear. I'm talking about the ones who they have a big dream and they hit a ceiling. Not the ones who, like, perhaps they own HVAC company and that's their whole goal, to own it, and they're completely content doing that. I applaud that.
Exactly.
I applaud that.
I actually have been envious at times of people that could go to work at 8 a.m. and come home at 5 p.m. and go fishing. I've never been able to do that. I go home at night. What am I doing tomorrow? What goals do I have? What do I have to finish? What do I have to do? How am I going to make payroll? That's a big one. Sometimes.
Yeah.
How do you start your day?
Oh, I start my day reading the Wall Street Journal, and I've bought that for my children and a lot of young people. There's an education in reading a financial magazine, newspaper on a regular basis. You can get an education in banking. You can get which is absolutely necessary. If you're going to build anything that needs a loan, you need to know what you can do with a bank. And most people think you go to the bank and they tell you what you're going to do, and that's not true at all. You can negotiate with the bank all day long. Get some if you've got a really exciting proposition, there'll be competition for your business, and you can get them to bid.
Like a guitar.
Just like a guitar. Yeah. So, I mean, it's.
So you read anything else?
Have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Think about life.
Yeah.
As I said, reflect on what the last few days or months have been, and what I need to do, and I actually do. This kind of sounds. Well, I don't know what it sounds like, but I mean, I do sit around and maybe this is a form of reflection. I reflect on the businesses I'm in and what can we do to improve them, and what opportunities are out there that we're missing. And it's amazing. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you're fresh, and things that seemed hard last night aren't so hard this morning.
Yeah.
And so I have those events fairly often. Not all of them work out, but I think about them.
You also take time during the day to steward your body.
I do. I work out 4 or 5 times a week. I watch my weight. I make sure I'm healthy. I come to you. You keep me fit in one way, and my wife feeds me healthy. So there's something. I did some reading a little bit before I came to this interview, and you get online, you'd say, so your comment to me was, this is going to be about financial wisdom, I think is what you described it. And look up financial wisdom. All it takes you to primarily is financial planners and how you can invest with, one entity or another. That's not what I meant. I wanted to know what is financial wisdom, and financial wisdom is a lot more than investing money. It's being good stewards of your money, being responsible, creating a relationship in your family where you're not fighting about money all the time. One of the biggest tragedies in America is that everybody's got credit cards, and it's okay if you got enough money, but if you don't, and you're spending beyond your means, what are families fighting about? Not paying the bills, or getting kicked out of their house or their apartment or whatever. And I had this conversation with one of my grandsons the other day. He said, if I ever get married, I'm going to have a prenuptial agreement. I'm so, well, that's a contract for failure. Why would you do that? If you don't trust and believe in who you're marrying, or you don't know him or her well enough to know what their financial stewardship is like, you're already failing. And you need to know before you get married that they're going to budget. They're not motivated by things necessarily. They don't spontaneously go out and get themselves into financial trouble by buying too many clothes because they're going to a concert tonight and they need to look, fresh and new or whatever. You need to know a little bit more about your spouse than just getting married, and fighting over money is an incredible cause for family stress and for the health of your marriage. You can't have a healthy marriage if you're fighting about money.
That's right.
So I'm a brand new wannabe entrepreneur. What's the biggest advice you can give me?
Don't be afraid.
It's good.
Doesn't matter. I never cared what I was selling, what my business was selling. I've sold food. I've sold milk. I've sold gloves and safety gear. I've sold. I went from selling for Union Carbide air separation plants, which are huge investments, multi-million-dollar projects back in the 70s, 80s, early 80s, that captured atmosphere, liquefied it, fractionated it into its components, and distributed it out into a factory. So John Deere Caterpillars, foundries would use that sort of thing, and so I went from that to selling to when interest rates went to 21%. It was 1981 or.
Oh yeah.
I started a brand new business for another company, for another group. Right when interest rates went from 9, I started building a new house at 9%. Had it all calculated out. I knew I could afford it. When I finished, it was 21.
Jeez.
I went to the bank and I said, "You've got all the money I have. Here's the keys, because I can't pay 21%. We negotiated something better, not a lot, but better, and it worked. But you got to thank God that my wife and I were on the same page, and we stayed married.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that marriage is always a cup of tea. I'm pretty sure that I was probably more problematic than she was, but somehow we managed to work through, and what a great thing.
Yeah. So not being afraid.
Yeah, it didn't answer
like,
your question.
No, you
exactly.
did. You did. I just have a follow up. It's you word that like it's a decision, and do you believe that?
I do.
That it just didn't happen. You didn't just have this. You made that decision to not be afraid.
5, 6, 7 years before I became an entrepreneur in business for myself, I was planning the stages. It wasn't necessarily that I was saving money. I was trying, but I didn't have a lot extra. And today, when somebody comes up and asks me that very question, and it happens fairly often, they tell me their story. I'm always willing to have a cup of coffee with somebody that wants to think about it or do it. And they tell me their story, and I tell them, okay, sounds like a reasonable plan. I think you ought to start tomorrow. Well, I got to wait until I got my debts paid, and I want the kids to be a little older so I don't have to worry about them, or I'm going to get married or whatever. Before we leave that conversation, I tell them, I think you should stay as an employee, because you're never going to go out and be independent. If you wait to get married until you find the perfect woman, the perfect man, and everything's all lined up, and you got everything, you got a house paid for and all that, you're never going to get married. If you wait to start a business until you've got enough money in the bank that it doesn't matter, you can fail, and you're never going to do it. You're never going to start your business.
It's kind of like if you wait until you have enough money to have children, you'll never have children.
Exactly. No, you can't wait. You want to do it? Do it. I can have a conversation